Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to another YouTube video. My name is Noah Shaw, or Ford 6.0, and today we've got the part 2 on the Land Rover Cummins swap / restoration project. So let's go ahead and dive right into today's video and get some work done. But we're gonna start removing all the wiring harness, all the coolant tanks and power steering and the washer reservoir, our air intake, everything that connects from the engine to the frame. Then once we get the chassis all prepped, we're gonna start on the 4BD Cummins swap and get all of the mounting brackets for the engine mounts welded in and in place. Make sure everything fits in perfect and all the trans valley and everything mounts up well to the back side of the vehicle. And then soon we'll have all of the interior back from getting diamond leather stitched. And we can throw that all back together as well because the whole interior is gonna get rhino lined. So let's get started on the process of getting all the front of the engine components removed. And we went ahead and loosened the lower radiator hose so we can start draining the coolant to get all those coolant lines from the engine to the cab off. So the first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is start removing all of these reservoirs from the body itself. And we're gonna save all of the bolts and hardware.
Except for that one.
Sheesh.
It went into the abyss.
The abyss. That nut is never gonna be found again. Oh, I've got a nut. Nut these nuts. Oh. And we're gonna go ahead and just take off the hood just to make it easier to work on the vehicle, and we're getting new hinge bushings and all that anyways, so I'm gonna start the process on taking off 3 bolts on the hinges. All right, we've got all of the bolts released for the hood. Now I'm gonna take off this, and we're both gonna grab each side of it and slowly release the hood. Set it aside. I ain't playing no games. Alright guys, so we've got most of the front of the engine off, all the radiator and fan shroud. Now we're moving on to the back of the transmission, and we're unbolting the whole entire back so we can pull the motor out and through the front of the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these back bolts and nuts off of the vehicle and update y'all here in a minute. And just like that, we've got the last nut out of the back of the transmission. And now we're going to work on pulling the engine motor mounts and getting the engine actually out of the vehicle itself. Now we're going to go ahead and roll in our cherry picker, drop it down, and we're probably going to attach it to the water neck right there and somewhere in the manifold area with a strap to the hoist and get it lifted out. We're going to remove our motor mounts here. They're 17 millimeter, put a wrench on the back side, and I'm going to put a socket on my ratchet up front, get both those loosened out on both sides once we get our strap attached to the motor itself, and then start pulling the engine out. All right guys, now we're gonna go ahead and lower our engine hoist and mount it up to our strap here with our chain, and hopefully start to pull it out. I'm gonna put a little bit of tension on it first, and then we're gonna get those engine mounts all the way out. Yeah. And I'm just getting these last couple fuel lines that are connected from the cab to the engine off so we can pull the engine all the way out. We're making sure all of our lines and everything are free, but we got the engine mount off. I actually went ahead and got the bolt down from underneath off, and then we are almost free to lift this thing completely out of the vehicle. I think this is our last fuel line that's connected.
You okay?
Yeah. Did he? I didn't think it broke. Oh yeah, it did break loose. And we're getting that last fuel line off of the filter housing that goes to the frame. Disconnect it so we can leave this whole fuel filter housing with the engine itself. And then we're gonna go do one last check on all of our lines all the way around. Make sure nothing else is connected from the frame or cab to the engine. And then we should be set free to pull the engine completely out. Wait, Josh, come on, man. Really?
What?
Come on, man.
That's what was making the noise.
Really, dude? All right, guys, now we're gonna take the factory engine out of the Land Rover. Get it all jacked up. And start sliding it out. Boom. All right, so we just got the factory engine completely out on the hoist. And as you can tell, this thing is just absolutely covered in oil and grease, and it is disgusting. It's a very, very old engine, so that's why we're kind of opting for that 4BT Cummins swap. We want to get a little bit more power out of the vehicle and just all around make it better for daily driving and a nice little cruising around vehicle. So that's why we pulled this engine out, and we're going to be doing the swap. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is drop the transmission out, get everything out of place, and we're gonna get all of this cleaned out, degreasered, and hopefully he's gonna go ahead and paint it all and fix all of the holes in the vehicle. As you can see, some of the panels are kind of rusted through and stuff, but we're gonna get it all degreased and all removed, and then see how we're gonna mount our motor mounts and the 4BT Cummins engine in. And for whatever transmission option we go for, I'm not sure if we're doing a manual or auto yet. We haven't decided yet. So most likely we're gonna roll back the entire vehicle here in a little bit, get everything all pressure washed on the underneath and the front, degreaser it, and start painting all of the frame and restoring the interior as well with some Rhino liner, and get everything nice before all that new upholstered interior goes back in. But that's gonna come at the end after the engine, everything is all swapped in and ready to go. But that pool wasn't very bad. We got all the bell housing bolts off. You can see here where all the location on those bell housing bolts are a little bit easier. We got all them pulled in from underneath and from up top, and then it kind of just slid right out after we got the motor mounts out. So I mean, not very hard. All right, guys, moving on to the underside of the vehicle, we're gonna remove the front drive shaft's 4 bolts and the rear drive shaft's 4 nuts. And then we're gonna remove the 2 mounts that go from the body of the frame to the transmission itself on each side. And then we're gonna drop the trans, lift it out, and give you all an update. All right, guys, so for dropping the transmission, we went ahead and got all of the 8 bolts out of the center cross member, and now we're gonna drop it down and then put a little jack under the transmission itself and then pull it out of the vehicle. Boom. And she's out. And we finally got that junk stock transmission out of the vehicle and the front and rear drive shaft. So we've got a really blank canvas to work with now. It's really, really open, and we're really gonna be able to see what all we can do here as far as fitment with the 4BT and the transmission. So it's a little bit of an open slate, so now it's time to get to work. But that calls for a little lunch break now. Guys, now we're gonna go ahead and start foam kitting down the whole frame and body of the vehicle with some degreaser. All right, guys, now we're going ahead and getting all the tires off of the Land Rover and setting it on some jack stands that we just picked up at the store. We're gonna finish wire wheeling the whole vehicle, but as you can tell, we've already got a lot of it already done and stripped down. But we're gonna continue on this, get everything all prepped up, give you all an update here in a little bit and see how it turns out. So we went ahead and started grinding down on the frame and smoothing some rough spots out before we go on to paint. Then moving on to the front of the vehicle, we started to remove the whole front clip just to make the whole install process for the 4BT engine and transmission a whole lot easier, and for welding all of the tabs for the motor mounts. And then moving on to some of the cab, there is a little bit of rust and holes, and we started patching them with some sheet metal. Gonna get that all welded in, smoothed out. Boom. cut around all of the rust, and now we're gonna put in a piece of plate and weld it in and grind it all down and smooth it out to match the rest of the body. All right, everyone, it is the following day, and as you can see, all of the spots on the body have been patched, sanded down, and grinded down, smoothed out on each side, and the cab's been repaired pretty good now. All the floor pans have been removed on the front and rear, just to give better access to painting all the frame and undercarriage, and all of the interiors stripped out all of the way for Raptor liner painting. We're gonna roll out the entire assembly, OSFO it, and start Raptor lining and painting the inside. And for all of the underneath and the frame of the vehicle, we're gonna be using some POR 15, and we're probably gonna end up taking all the rear and front shocks off after we roll it outside. You can see how much dust and rust all came off from the wire wheeling, but all of the frame is all patched up underneath some of the joints that were rusted out. And now we're gonna go ahead and roll it outside, get to OSFOing all of underneath, and getting a little bit of a restoration done, get it all blacked out with a clean look. Also, we went ahead and removed all 4 doors on the vehicle because we're gonna be getting 4 brand new doors to throw on as well. Now we're gonna go ahead and take all of the jack stands out from underneath and get it rolled out. All right, who needs a 4BT when we can just Flintstone this thing?
Alright guys, so you can see we've got the motor, trans out, we've got the frame ground down, wire wheeled, everything cleaned up, repaired some panels that were needed repaired. We've got the floor pans out for easier access to the chassis. Next video we're going to be priming the frame and getting it ready to go, so stay tuned.
All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below, let me know what you thought about it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more content just like this, and stay tuned to the Land Rover build series. That's going to end it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed.